Okay, to kick off the first segment, the NBA segment, we have our review of the NBA Finals, the Suns versus Bucks. And it was a great series. The Bucks won.
Mm-hmm.
Giannis gets his first ring, and his
Mm-hmm.
legacy is really improving. He's really building on that.
I mean, he's really looking like to be like it might be a little early to say, but he could truly become like one of the best players ever. Like he could be in like the top 25, top 20 conversation, maybe even top 10, you know? And
Yeah,
I've seen like a bunch of people asking on social media, like, who's is Giannis already the second best power forward ever? Because obviously, Tim Duncan's like the clear cut number one.
yeah.
But is he ahead of people like KG, Dirk, Karl Malone? I wouldn't put him there yet, but I'm not sure because you could say with Karl Malone, he's got more chips in him, but Malone's obviously he's got the most points ever.
Yeah.
And then with Dirk, he also won a chip similar to Giannis, where he stayed with one team, stayed loyal,
Yeah, and
and
then with
then
KG, he
yeah,
didn't stay with his own team, but the Timberwolves were such a bad franchise that
yeah,
he was
so
he
poorly
literally couldn't
mismanaged.
stay. So
You
he
can't blame
left.
him for leaving. You really can't, because they were so poorly mismanaged. I mean, it was crazy, and also like the whole like the drama where they lost all those picks because
Yeah,
of like the shady free agency deal they had with Joe
yeah.
Smith. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it was just a
But yeah,
mess.
he
It was
went
a
to the
mess.
Celtics and won in '08,
Hmm.
which was a
But
year the
Giannis, I
Celtics
mean
didn't
that
have
that
much
shows
back.
that shows like Gian and his what's most impressive about him is his resume. And he like at
Yeah,
26, he's NBA champion, Finals MVP, 50 points in a closeout game, Defensive Player of the Year, back-to-back MVP. Like he really is going to be good because I think he's going to win out. Like probably, I think he's going to win at least one more chip, right?
hmm
He can definitely win one more chip. He can definitely win more Defensive Player of the Years and more MVPs. Like he really has a case to be the best
yeah,
power forward ever. I think when his career is said and done.
yeah. I mean, I'm not really worried about his like individual, accolades. I mean, look, he's 26. He already has a deep DPOI, multiple MVPs, the final MVP. Because I mean, let's be honest. As long as he's the first option on the team, he's gonna get the Finals MVP, right?
Yeah.
So it's really all about winning. So yeah, I mean, from right now, all they have to worry about is winning chips.
Yeah, and their
I mean,
core is
not
all locked in. Like Drew
yeah.
Holiday's there for a while. He's locked
Uh-huh.
into a max. I mean, Giannis he's on the super max last year, and then Middleton. I don't know how he got a max, but he got a
Yeah, I
max
mean,
contract. He's gonna be there for a while.
come on now. Chris Middleton, right? I mean, the second best, the second right hand man. You could argue that with Drew Holiday, but he played an important role into this team being where they are. I mean, this like the Bucks before this year have always
I think I
been
agree with you
around.
because I agree with you because I think the Bucks, they walked into the facility every day and they saw like if we have a work ethic similar to Chris Middleton, that's what our team's gonna be like. And they realized they have to do the exact opposite of that. Chris Middleton, obviously, he's not a hard worker. He's a terrible shooter. He's a terrible slasher. He's a terrible playmaker. And everyone took that personally, and it said we're gonna do the
He's a
exact opposite
great
of that to
player.
overcome him. To
Look,
overcome
man,
him.
he's a great player. You can say the slander, like maybe when the season restarts. He right now he has a ring. You can't say anything about that, and he's chilling right now. You know,
Yeah, but on the other
probably with
end, the
some
team that
family and
doesn't have
stuff.
the ring is the
Huh?
Suns. The team
Yeah,
that doesn't have the ring is the Suns, and honestly, it's actually really disappointing. Like it really is disappointing because
yeah,
like there's so many things going on here. Because Aiden just seemed to like fall apart. He seemed to just
yeah,
straight up fall apart at the end. I mean,
yeah. He
in the
did.
first two games, like obviously you can't stop Giannis, like no one can, but he was doing a very good job of limiting him and kind of like letting letting Giannis do what he wants. Like
Hmm
you're still gonna go off, but you're not gonna be dropping 50 like he did in Game 6.
Yeah,
But he kind of fell apart. Booker, it seemed like Booker was kind of the only one who's actually showing up. Because in Game 4 and Game 5, especially Game 4, Chris Paul probably had the worst game of his entire career in the playoffs. Like that was an atrocity. Game 4, that was terrible.
yeah. It was.
And
I
then
mean,
when you're
before
relying
we
on
go,
Jay
like,
Crowder, that's sad.
yeah, before we just leave the Bucks real quick. I mean, just going back to this Bucks team. What I was about to say was this Bucks team has always been around. Like they've always been contending, but like it's
Hmm.
so hard to go
They've
from
never taken that
getting to
jump.
the second. Yeah, that jump. Like you're always making the second round. You made the the Eastern Conference Finals. Remember, I think it was 2019.
Yeah, 19
Yeah,
against
and
Toronto.
you lost to Toronto. Okay, and then you came 2020. You go back. You lose second round to the Heat, right? And you just like
Hmm
you just need that player that just to put you over the edge. Now Drew Holiday came in. He was that, but back when the Bucks were frankly like one of the worst teams in the conference, and you had a young Middleton with hair. You had
You had a
Young Giannis
you had a
before
Giannis
he
that wasn't like
skinny Giannis.
didn't look like he was in the gym 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, them two just grinding, just
One of them
developing,
was
working
grinding.
hard. I mean, they both are grinding, sharp shooting. You don't have to be as muscular like Giannis. I mean, hell, just grinding in the gym is not gonna help your shooting. You can't just shoot the ball and it goes over the backboard. So, I mean, it's just this team is like it's like a old time ring, where
Hmm
everybody really was working hard
And like
getting this
is that
franchise to where it
that's
got
true,
to.
and it's like a sense of like they did it the right way, you know. Like
Yeah.
Giannis stayed, and it wasn't like the Lakers last year. Like it was the first year that they were all there together, pretty much. You know, like the first year LeBron was in LA was kind of a wash. It didn't really count because Braun got hurt, and that
Mhm.
team was just really weird. They had like Lance Stevenson, Michael Beasley. It was just a weird team. But the second year, they get Anthony Davis, they get win now veterans, and they
Yeah.
win it in their first year. And like it's just like it wasn't built like through the draft like the Bucks. It wasn't built through smart signings and stuff like that. But it didn't discredit the ring. Don't get me wrong. But it's like this is like the way like winning a championship is supposed to be in the NBA. Like you draft well, you get your superstar homegrown, and you slowly conquer those mountains where it's like, oh, we're stuck in the first. We can't make the playoffs. Make the playoffs. You can't get past the second round. Get by the second round. Then win the finals. That's how you're supposed to do it.
hmm And like, yeah, I mean, the players on this team have been on this team for a while. I mean, really, it was like Drew Holiday was the guy who really brought them
And
over the top. And
PJ
hey,
Tucker also helped at the trade deadline,
yeah,
getting
yeah,
him.
definitely PJ Tucker too. You can't forget about him. PJ getting crossed up in the finals. I mean, we needed that
Yeah,
for entertainment.
but I mean, Chris Paul also got crossed up. So
Yeah, but yeah, this I just wanted to give my props. We both want to give our props to the Bucks. Now we can
yep.
go to the Suns,
Now we can go
who
Suns. Yeah.
were really falling apart. You had a 2-0 lead in the finals,
Mhm.
and you lose four straight.
I don't know how you. I mean, I think if you win one game in Milwaukee, like the games 3 and 4, you win the series because I mean, I don't think they'll choke a 3-1 lead, but like this, this just kind of like shows like this is like Chris Paul's playoff record, like constantly choke, constantly falling short. Like this was supposed to be the year, like you finally put to bed, you get your chip, and like that's
hmm
that's your legacy. Like, but I think at this point, unless he goes to like the Lakers or the Nets or something like that, his legacy is gonna be great regular season player, but choker in the playoffs.
I mean, yeah, and the thing is, if he jumps ship, and he goes to the Lakers,
Hmm
like that in its own hurts his own legacy, like how it hurt KD's legacy. Like KD was on a team. I mean,
But
granted, he
it
was.
wouldn't be the same because
Yeah, cause I
KD
know
was
he's
in his
old.
prime. KD
I
was in his
know,
prime.
but like Chris Paul is still a great. Like, yeah, he didn't have a great playoff series, and yeah, I mean, but like his value, his team value, and his leadership is just and that veteran experience is just
Yeah, the thing
very
is
is still
he would have
necessary
won
for that
Finals
team.
MVP if they had won. He would have won
Yeah,
Finals MVP. But if he
he
goes
would
to the
have won.
Lakers or Nets, if he goes to Lakers or Nets, it's gonna be Braun or KD, right? If he goes to, I mean, Clippers aren't really contenders this next year because Kawhi
Or
got hurt.
Harden. Yeah,
Yeah, or Harden or Anthony Davis, but he would not be in line to probably get MVP unless something crazy happens. But it
yeah,
would not be him, and people can discredit that.
yeah. But like he goes from like let's say he's a free agent, and like I'm expecting him to resign. But like let's just say it for the sake of the argument, he goes from this is reigning Western Conference champions team, made the finals, collapsed in the finals, and he jumped ship to go to the Lakers. Like I know he's old, but like is that like like such obvious ring chasing is that gonna be validated because of his age? Like it's so obvious he's trying to
Yeah,
get a ring.
that is true. That is true.
Like
Um,
because he was the reason why the Suns went as far as they did. That has to
yeah.
be obvious. You have to make
Yeah,
it.
I mean, no one can take that away from him because I mean, he's a great regular season player. Obviously, I mean, he led the Thunder, who had like what a 0.2% chance to make them playoffs, and they went to 7,
To
in
the
the first round.
to the
And I mean,
Rockets.
but it's just to be considered like he's gonna be a Hall of Famer first ballot. No one's taking that away. But
Yeah.
in order to be like that, like true, like all time great, you have to have a championship. And like it took like all like I remember all the Lob City years.
Hmm.
Disappointment every single year. He goes to the Rockets. Um, he gets about a hamstring away from making the finals, right?
Yeah, and they would have won.
And I think they would have won because they were going against the 2018 Cavs, who other than Braun were just terrible. Like they were
That
just
was they
terrible.
got swept that year by the Warriors, so that shows you how
I mean,
no
it would. I
comps they
think
were.
yeah. And then 2019 was kind of a wash because he was on the Thunder. Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, he was on Thunder that year. And then this year, everything falls your way. Brooklyn Nets get hurt. Braun is 100%. 80 gets hurt. You play Jamal Murray less Nuggets, right? Then you
Hmm.
play Kawhi less Clippers, and like you make the finals finally, right? You're up 2-0. Finish it. Finish the deal and cement yourself as a true all-time great, and
Yeah,
erase
this
that
has been
playoff.
awesome.
Yeah, and erase
Yeah.
that playoff choker history.
On those rainy nights, rainy cold nights,
Hmm
this is going to be one of his nightmares. Is to
He's
say
gonna be thinking about
something
this
in
for
the
a
finals.
while. He's gonna think
I
about
mean,
this for a
he
while.
has to be. Like this was like very few people really have that chance. Like those veterans, great players who've been in the league for a long time, who are just outstanding, and they have all the personal accolades. But the one thing they're missing is a chip, and they get to Chris Paul's age that he's right now, and they finally get that first opportunity to get into the finals,
Hmm
and they get the 2-0 lead. Like
Yeah, I mean, I
this
don't think
was
there really has been
this was
anyone.
a opportunity given on like a golden plate. He could not have given this up,
Yeah,
and it's just sad. I mean, that whole team really didn't come out to play other than Booker. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
they were just like
Because I
until
mean,
like game 6, like
hmm
it was kind of close. It was there. I mean, I believe the Suns had the lead going in the half. I could be wrong, but like it just had that feeling in the air that the Bucks were just gonna win regardless, you know?
yeah, it
And
kind of felt like that because I mean, it felt like the Bucks had just stolen momentum from the Suns. I mean, it felt like Suns
yeah,
were up 2-0, end the series, write the name on the trophy, that type of thing. But crazy, crazy collapse. But I mean, you could call it a collapse, but you could also call it a comeback, and it's up to you. But Chris Paul, he's never gonna live this down ever. You
no.
know.
But like real quick, I
Yeah,
mean, we're talking about the veteran, but we also have to look at the young guy, Devin Booker. So
yeah,
he's like what? I think 24. He's 24
yeah.
years
He's
old.
he's pretty young. He's around there.
Yeah. So yeah, he qualifies as a young talent. I think 25, 26 is when you at that point you're like not really considered young anymore.
Hmm
But 24, you made your first playoff appearance, so you get that label off of you that you can't win. Your playstyle doesn't
hmm
allow you to win, even though you did have to sacrifice,
Touches and shots and all
playmaking.
that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But man, I mean, you made your first like who just goes to the playoff for the first time and then goes straight to the finals? Like usually, you
There's a
before
build up. There's a build
yeah,
up.
you have to learn how to walk before you run. But
Hmm
you know, Devin
And
Booker
like it felt like for the
was
young
going
guys,
from
like
crawling to running.
yeah, like Bridges and Aiden and Booker. Like it felt like, oh man, the playoffs didn't really mean anything. Like they're playing great, but then the finals, Aiden and Bridges just kind of just disintegrated. Like they didn't show up 100%. Felt like they were a little bit like scared almost, or like they weren't built for
Hmm.
the moment. But I think in a
Yeah, the
couple,
inexperience was there.
yeah, you could
Like
definitely
this
see
Bucks
it.
team,
And even though no one in the finals in those two teams had made the final before, other than Jay Crowder, who obviously who has he's obsessed with losing in the finals, lost again. But like there's no playoff experience, but you could like there's no finals experience. But the Bucks definitely have the most playoff experience, and you could definitely see that in the big
yeah,
moments. They always came through, and the Suns kind of fell flat. You know,
yeah,
that's when this series was won and lost in those big time moments because there's like those moments. I want to say game 3, I want to say, where there's a Drew Holiday lob
hmm
to Giannis, And you can kind of tell from there, like, man, this series really changing direction. You know, maybe the Bucks can come back, man. But the main
Yeah.
point here was, congrats to the Bucks, but Chris Paul, I'm sorry, but unless you win it next year somehow, but I don't think they can because Nuggets gonna be healthy, Lakers gonna be healthy, um, Mavericks gonna get better. All those teams, I don't think they'll be able to come out the West, but Chris Paul, he's gonna have to live with this probably for the rest of his career.
The rest of his life. This is something that haunts you forever, you know?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that I mean that wraps up really. Really wraps up this
Hmm.
NBA Finals. I
Yep.
mean, this is what the story is. Every single year, it's always one team goes this far to come, short, which
Yep.
you hate to see it. But yeah, look at both of these teams. Both of these teams. I mean, yeah, you make the finals, you'll have a great overall postseason. But
Yeah.
this postseason in like general has a great moments. Like you have KD with his shot on the 3 point line.
Oh
You
yeah, the
have
toe. Yeah.
yeah, you have Aiden's lob game winning dunk. You don't even see that a lot, but
Yeah.
you got one. You have
The Giannis
that
lob. The Giannis lob
the
from Drew
Giannis
Holiday.
lob,
And then
and then maybe you can count the last game of the Lakers Sun series where it got finished.
maybe. Maybe. But great. It
Yeah,
was
Dame Lillard's
overall though. Oh
hell
yeah,
of a
Dame Lillard insane game against the Nuggets, and they still ended up
yeah,
losing. But
sad.
overall, this is a great season. You know, especially with COVID and all that. Like the Raptors weren't even playing in Toronto; they were playing in Tampa. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a great season, and obviously looking forward to the next one. I think that that wraps up that little topic, and now we can move on to NBA free agency, right? And there's definitely some big names out there, but the main free agency class I think everyone knows is next year. Next year there's
Yeah.
some real big names, but
Mm-hmm.
this year, there's Chris Paul, as we just talked about, who has an option for about $40 million that he can either opt into, and he'll be there for one more year, or he can opt out. And there's been rumors that he wants to opt out and get a multi-year deal, or go to a contender like the Lakers, something like that, win a chip. But there's him. Then there's Kawhi Leonard, who also has an option similar to Chris Paul, around $35 million. If he opts in, he'll be there for one more year. If he opts out, he'll be an unrestricted free agent. But the main thing about him is he will be hurt probably for the majority of next year. Similar to like Kevin Durant, the first year in Brooklyn, you'll have to just kind of wait it out for a year. And also there's what he can do is if he opts in this year, the Clippers can offer him a supermax next year, which could tempt him to opting in. Then there's some other notable unrestricted free agents: Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry, and DeMar DeRozan. Those are the main, probably like big five free agents. There's also some solid players like Victor Oladipo, Dennis Schroeder, Kelly Oubre, people like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So
mean here, real
yeah.
quick. Let's just start off with Kawhi. Kawhi Leonard. I mean, you left in 2019. You had a great year with 1 year
Hmm.
stint with the Raptors, right? Got the chip. Like you got criticized for leaving, but I guess it was kind of obvious that you were gonna leave. Like Masai
You didn't want to go
brought
there.
yeah, when Masai brought Kawhi in, he knew it was gonna be 1 year. You have to go all in, right?
Hmm.
But Kawhi leaving wasn't the surprise. I mean, the surprise was who he chose. I guess he got PG to come with him, and then all of a sudden the Clippers are looking dangerous. He
Hmm.
didn't join the Lakers. He didn't try to make a super
Very
team.
close to though. Very close to though.
He did though, and
Hmm.
he tried to build his own team. And I mean, you cannot say it's a success so far.
It's definitely not a success because success would be a championship.
Yeah,
That's the only
success
way
would
to
be
be
a championship,
successful. And the
especially after
first year,
leaving the Raptors.
they just choked straight up to the Nuggets. It was a
Yeah.
straight choke job. And everyone, the whole year, everyone's like, "Oh, Battle of LA, this LeBron versus Kawhi, that." And then
Hmm.
in year two, he gets hurt. You can say what would happen, but it's all hypothetical. It's like if he was healthy and wasn't hurt, we would have won the chip. But you can't say that. You really can't because you have to deal with the
I
hand
would
you're
have
dealt.
chosen the Suns anyways, but yeah, I
You
mean,
never
he
know.
came home. yeah, he went home, right? He chose to go home over staying and maybe having a dynasty, a little dynasty, in Toronto. And he would have gotten a chip. There's no doubt in my mind that they would have gotten the chip. Imagine,
I don't know.
especially with Siakam's development, if he stayed,
I
Siakam
don't
would be
know
a
about
completely
that.
different player.
I don't know about that
I'm
because
telling you, man, he would have gotten
I don't
something.
know
And
because
we
they
would
would
have
have played the
one more
Lakers in the
chip.
final. You think they could have beaten the Lakers?
Yes. I mean, here,
No.
we have Kawhi, you have Lowry, you have Fred Van Vliet.
But their
That
second
team is
best player
perfect.
is nowhere near the level of Anthony Davis.
I mean, that team wasn't built to have two main stars and just a bunch of role players. Everyone there is a solid role player. I mean,
That's true. They do have
and
some
they have
solid
solid
depth because
stars.
they have their backcourt's very good. Lowry and Fred
Yeah,
VanVleet.
you have to
But
remember when they won the chip in 2019, they were the first team to win without a lottery pick on the team. So
that's
they
true.
aren't made with star power. This is not how they're made. They're made with development and great drafting. Which I mean, look at them now. Like, granted, if Kawhi was still there, they wouldn't have the pick they have, the
I
fourth
think
pick
they
they
just had a
have.
down year. It was a very weird year. I said that earlier they were in Tampa. I think it was just overall a very weird year. I think they'll definitely rebound next year, make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to a sense of normalcy because the top four pick they have. We'll get into that in a second. Who they
Yeah.
might take there, and then the next free agent, Chris Paul. We just talked about him. He's kind of got about like pretty much about three teams, mainly two that seem to be interested in him from what I'm hearing from Woj and Shams and all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So one is obviously return to the. Oh, first of all, before I get into this, is seems like he's going to opt out of his deal and pursue either a championship or a multi-year deal. So one of the teams has to deal with a championship. The other two have to deal with multi-year deals that are going to set them up for the next 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the first option is, what seems to be like the main thing that might do that, the leading thing is return to the Suns on a 3-year deal around 80 to 100 million, somewhere in that range. Personally, if I'm the Suns owner, I'm not giving Chris Paul that contract. He's
I mean, look,
36 with
yeah.
very lengthy very lengthy injury history, and it kind of feels like this year was like kind of like a lightning in a bottle type of thing. Uh I don't think they'll be able to compete against a healthy Lakers. Won't be able
Me
to.
neither.
I don't think they'll be able to. I don't. And also the Nuggets, no, they keep getting slept on. They are very scary. They're very scary. They got the MVP and they're getting Jamal Murray back. Michael Porter Jr. might take another leap, and the Golden State's gonna be good to go. I just don't think they can compete with those top teams. They can still probably make the playoffs, but do you really want to pay Chris Paul 35 million, 30 million?
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
also Booker's making the max. Aiden wants the max. And Aiden will get a max, by the way. Because if they don't pay him this year, they have his restricted free agency next year, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
team is going to offer him the max. Like whether they like it or not, that he's gonna get the max.
Yeah.
And then Mikal Bridges, he said to want 20 to 25 million. So it's gonna get very pricey in Phoenix very quickly. And if I'm with them, I give Chris Paul a 2-year deal at the most, and I say you can make like
Yeah.
2 years
Same.
60, 2 years 70, because after that it gets too much for a guy who has an injury history.
Yeah, in this age too. I mean, I have to agree with you there. I mean, you're just gonna have bite the
Hmm.
bullet if you're Chris Paul. I mean, he has to know his situation
Yeah, he
and
does.
what kind of leverage he has. I mean, does he really have the
Well, that's
leverage
the
to
main. That's the other team that's interested. The other team, right?
yeah.
Well, there's obviously the Lakers, which would be significantly less money, probably going
Yeah.
from around 30 to 40 million to about 5 to 10, right? Somewhere in there, and it'll most likely be a 1-year deal, maybe two. That would be the Lakers situation. Obviously, it's like best buds with Braun. But that would be, if you want to win a championship, we discussed that earlier with the ramifications that could be. And then the other team, which could be, it seems that like they might be legitimate contender for a signature, but some people are speculating they might just be used to, drive up his value, is the New York Knicks. Because the Knicks obviously have a lot of cap room, right? And they're in search of a star. Chris Paul probably fits that description. And Chris Paul, him and his agent could say to the Phoenix Suns, if he decides to go for the money, hey, I'm getting what 3 years, 100 mil from the Knicks. If you match it or even give me a little bit less, I'll come back to you. So that could be that. I don't think he'll actually go to the Knicks. I think I agree with some of the people. I think he's just using them as a bargaining chip to just increase his value a little bit.
Yeah, and this you have to have some retrospect, and you have to look in the mirror as well. You have to see your age, you have to see your history, and you have to see what happened last year, and you just have to make a decision on that. And whatever decision you make, it is what it is. I
I
mean,
think it
if I
really
was
comes.
him, I would. If I was him, I would just write out my career in Phoenix. I mean, that's probably what's gonna happen. But with what happened, well, what occurred this year, you're kind of forced to, because I mean, these are your last years. You don't want to ruin your image, you know, in your last years.
Yeah,
And
like
it's
become like David West, like chasing those championships and
yeah, like
stuff.
real quick, even with Kawhi, like his image, a lot of it. I mean, he's in his prime, you could say, right now.
Yeah, around there.
And if he leaves to go to some other, like the Mavericks or something,
Hmm.
as an example, like his image is going to be tainted because his own personal project failed. Okay, in LA,
That is true, and it
he
wouldn't be his
walked
team at
away.
all. It would definitely be Luca's team.
Yeah, it's not, and he walked away from
And
a great
he got,
organization.
yeah, he got everything he wanted. He got the superstar he wanted, Paul George. He got an owner who really cares about the team, right? He
Hmm.
he got his max contract. He got those like private planes and like got to like skip practices and make and like pretty much schedule when he wanted them. He got like above red carpet treatment.
Yeah,
And like he got everything. Like he got the private planes. I mean, he got everything. Playing like the first year, like that rub players the wrong way, like Patrick Beverly. And it would to me too. Like if I'm a role player and I'm busting my ass every day, and Kawhi Leonard comes like, I know he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but if he if he's just doing whatever he wants and like does not even showing up to practice, scheduling whenever he wants, or when his private plane, it would take me the wrong way.
yeah. I mean, same with me too. Like he's a great defensive player, and he just has a lot of like versatility and efficiency on
Hmm.
that offensive end, and like he's just gonna go and become second fiddle to Luke. I mean, this is the team that you knocked out in the first round 2 years in a row, and you're gonna be crawling to them.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of embarrassing.
Uh-huh.
But
That's for sure. And then
uh,
a third free agent is Mike Conley. And the consensus, I think, with everyone just seems to be that Utah brings him back. Um,
yeah, I have to agree with
he
that.
was a great pickup for them, and also the amount of assets Utah gave up, it's kind of like they intended to bring him back. But the thing is, one little thing that might go a little unnoticed here is like everyone thinks he's going back to Utah. I think he is too, but I don't think they're gonna be able to afford him straight up because obviously he's making like he came off his max contract, which is making him 30 million a year. He's not gonna be making that, but he could definitely like ask for around 20 million and 25 million. He could definitely get it. But
Hmm.
apparently, like what I've been seeing online from like their salary cap table and stuff, they can only like straight without doing any trade or anything, afford him and give him about 15 to 20 million at the most, like around 18 and a half million at the most. So, and if he wants a little bit more, like 25 million, they might have to trade like someone actually significant to make that money. Like, maybe someone like Royce O'Neal, who's been a very, very good defender for them. He's versatile in defense and he can hit the three. They might have to lose a piece like that, or like, Joe Ingles or Bogdanovich, someone who actually has some very good value to this team. And they might be able to find a way around it, but I think the consensus is Conley will find his way back to Utah somehow. He
Yeah,
will find his
I
way
mean,
back there.
yeah, I mean, Mike Conley, he really is that glue for that team. I mean, he's that PG that keeps the Utah Jazz a complete team. And they
Yeah,
easily
he
could have
is.
had that Suns type of playoff run. They just completely
They did
blew
fall apart.
that.
They did fall.
Yeah, they
They
fell
fall
apart
apart.
that
And Rudy
series.
Gobert, that contract they gave him, that super max they gave
Horrendous.
him, it might not look bad now, but in 2 years, 3 years, they're
He's
going
gonna
to
bite him.
regret every cent of that because he got completely played off the court against the Clippers.
Hmm.
They exposed him. Great rim protector, but terrible perimeter defender, and slow on his feet out there. I mean, he got to it around with. I mean, they
Yeah,
they might have to trade him. Not maybe not this year, but in the future, they're gonna hate that contract
I
they
mean,
gave
yeah,
him.
and yeah, I feel like Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are two players where if they get that ring just like Giannis and Middleton and
Hmm.
Giroux, Like if they get that ring, they could really get some respect added back on their name because
Yeah.
Mitchell and first of all, Gobert is a lot of people call him overrated, especially for his defense. Some
Hmm.
people don't see it because they really value that perimeter defense that he just lacks. He's too
Yeah.
big to to really follow these guards, right? He needs to
Yeah,
stay in
that's
the
true.
paint. You got to stay in the paint.
And that works during the regular season because no one's like creating different strategies to like expose him. Like not it's not on a nightly basis. You know, might every once in a while, but in the playoffs, when a team is their sole purpose is to just beat you, and they have the whole season worth of tape, they have at least 4 games to experiment with. They can find a way to make him pretty much useless on the court because he provides almost nothing on offense. Because if he had a jumper and he could shoot, I think we wouldn't be having this conversation. But since he's pretty much only a lob threat on offense, what can you really do? What can you really do with him when he's not clicking defensively?
Hey, I mean, that's the question that the Utah Jazz still have to figure out. Quinn Snyder, right?
Hmm.
You will have to find a way with this team because
Yeah.
you're not going to get more than what you have now. I mean, with Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, what you
Uh
have
huh.
right now is like the team right here. It really is hard for them to go up because,
It is.
as you
It
said,
is
they
because
can't
no
really
one wants to
guide
play in
you.
Utah anyway.
Yeah, like LeBron said, nobody wants to.
Yeah,
Nobody plays with Utah in 2K. Nobody
that's true.
chooses Utah in real life, other than the people in Utah. And
Yeah.
like that's a like just like okay, Milwaukee is kind of a small market. Wisconsin, that definitely is a small market.
Yeah, it's
And you
definitely
root
probably second smallest.
as a neutral, you root for these small market teams, right? And
Hmm.
I rooted for the Jazz hard to do something in this playoffs, but I don't know. It's just with this year it was your prime. It was really your
This was
year.
supposed to be the year, I think. Yeah, I was going
Yeah,
to say that because they didn't have to play Kawhi, and they lost back-to-back games without Kawhi on the Clippers. Like they should have won those games. They're in the conference finals. They could have. Who knows what happened? And then
hey,
the
that
next,
would have been a great
yeah,
conference finals.
that really would have. It would have been. The next three players, or the final players we're really going to talk about, Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, and Dennis Schroeder. In my opinion, these guys are all kind of like they're all kind of
They're moving.
they're all moving for sure. I don't think any of them are staying,
Yeah.
but I think they're all kind of connected in a way because there's been a lot of rumors that Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan want to team up again. Because obviously everyone knows they're best bros. It was a very big deal when DeMar got split up from the Raptors for Kawhi because he was told that um, I don't know if you saw his interview with Shannon Sharp recently, but he said they told me 2 days before the trade you're not getting traded. Then then he said he never got over it until the bubble. That's when he started like accepting the reality of that trade. But that tells you like that really hurt him. That really hurt him if it took him to the bubble. That was a year and a half later. And he's still not probably 100% over it, but they're definitely best bros. I could see them teaming up. There's been rumors that LA is where they want to team up. The salary cap would be very tough to match. That's where Dennis Schroeder comes in because he's a free agent, but the Lakers have his bird right, so he would have to be involved in a sign and trade. Uh, One of them would probably have to take a significant pay cut, probably around the mid-level exception, 5 to 10 mil, and then Schroeder would have to make probably the same as what the other is going to want to sign for, and they trade that.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't think they could really team up, even if there's interest. I know there's been interest with the Wizards, to go with Beal and Westbrook, but that's chaos right now. Right now,
That is,
they have to. I mean, we as the Wizards are just gonna have to worry about keeping what we have together and build on top
mhm.
of it. If I'm DeMar DeRozan, I would steer clear of that ship, because that's sinking ship in my opinion.
Yeah, I
And
would
also
too.
on top of that, this like it won't really match. I mean, you have three ISO players, you right? Three ball that players
Yeah,
that really
and then
move the ball.
also, yeah, really quick, the Pelicans seem to be very interested in Kyle Lowry, and obviously they made that Jonas Valanciunas trade.
I would love to see that.
They really want, and they have 36 million in cap room, so they can definitely offer him probably the most money. I don't know about a max, that would kind of be stupid, but they can offer him like 25, 30 million for 3 years, and they're not paying
Yeah.
Zion for 3 years.
Hey, I mean, if I'm a veteran PG like like Chris Paul did. He went into a young team with young superstars. I mean, Zion's not Book, but he's a great big
That I think that's what
center.
they're envisioning. I
So
think that's what they're
if
envisioning.
I mean,
Like
yeah,
Chris
the
Paul
Pelicans
2.0.
like the Pelicans and the Suns. What do they have in common? They've been dumpster fire organizations for a long time. This brilliant Kyle Lowry, he's no CP3, but I promise you, he won't fall apart in the
Hmm.
finals. He's been there before,
Yeah, that's true.
and and um and like I mean I don't know. Brandon Ingram is something a guy to look out for.
Yeah.
But if you can
And
just
yeah,
keep
Kyle
your
Lowry would be a
team
great
together,
signing for the Pelicans. He really would be. But
yeah,
I think those are like I think the Lakers and the Pelicans might be his main teams. But his
yeah,
buddy DeMar DeRozan, in my opinion, is the biggest wild card in all of free agency. Like I have
hmm
zero clue where he's gonna go. Zero clue. Because he could go to the Lakers, he could go to the Clippers, he could go to the Wizards, he could go back to San Antonio. He could go really anywhere, and I wouldn't be shocked
yeah.
because
DeMar DeRozan
yeah,
is just one of those presents that you're just gonna have to wait till the
I
day
think so
comes
too.
to open it.
I
But
think so too because
uh-huh.
there's not been any like because it seems like Chris Paul is kind of like locked into like 2-3 teams. Kyle Lowry's kind of between 2-3 teams. DeMar he isn't really locked in anywhere. There's been apparently he's very interested in going to the West Coast. Back home to the Lakers or Clippers, probably more the Lakers. But I don't know. Like he could go back to San Antonio. No one really knows.
Yeah, I mean, he could ask Kawhi how it went. Going home to the Clippers.
Yeah, and the
It didn't
thing is, if
end
he
well.
goes to the Clippers, I mean, he's essentially wasting the first year because Kawhi is not going to be back. Like probably not the entire year, in my opinion, because he loves to take his injuries very slowly. Because I think that the Clippers rush him, they could have a repeat of what happened in San Antonio, where he starts to distrust the front office and the training staff, and then doesn't want to resign. So I doubt the Clippers would want to do that with the guy they gave up so much for. The
hmm
Paul George trade and building the team around him. But if you're DeMar DeRozan, do you really want to waste a year just to waste a year and waiting for Kawhi to come back? Because they know they're not going to win anything without Kawhi. And if he does come back, it's going to take him a little while to, like get his stuff back.
And then even when he's fully healthy, he takes like load management.
That is true.
So it's like he's not playing a lot of
Hmm.
games. It's
Yep.
unfortunate to see a player of his caliber do that, but it
Yeah.
is what it is. My move of the offseason that I want to see, you can say yours, but
Hmm.
the move of the offseason that I want to see is clearly Lowry to the Pelicans. Try to keep your team together, get Lowry, and then hopefully your rookie head coach is good, right?
Well, in free agency, if you're talking about just signing,
hmm
uh, it would probably have to be a veteran point guard of the Lakers because I think you guys all know. Uh, I like LeBron James. My favorite player. Uh, it's kind of like Lakers like my secondary team other than the Wizards. So I'm definitely rooting for them. Second most because of Braun. And watching the Lakers a lot this year, they're only like not only, but their main weakness is the second LeBron steps off the court, they have no offense because he might be listed as a small forward or power forward, but he's the point guard of that team. He runs
Yeah.
offense, he brings the ball down the court, and Anthony Davis is a great player, but he can't play make to the level of LeBron. So they need an actual veteran point guard like Kyle Lowry or Chris Paul or someone like that. I doubt they're gonna Mike Conley, but he would be a good fit too. But I would like to see the Lakers get a veteran point guard like Chris Paul or Kyle Lowry.
I mean, if I'm if
And
you
it's
really
doable
want
too.
that,
Like non-delusional. Like I know Lakers fans, like they go crazy. Like we're gonna get him. But like non-delusional. Like you sign and trade Dennis Schroeder and a first round pick, and even like Kyle Kuzma, who I know has been thrown on every deal. Like that can in a sign and trade. Remember, this is not a regular trade. Sign and trade, like the team will just kind of take whatever assets they can get at that point. If you go with a first round pick, Kyle Kuzma and Dennis Schroeder, you can definitely get someone like Kyle Lowry or sign and trade or Chris Paul in a sign. I don't know about
that
Chris
would be
Paul, but
disastrous. I mean, I don't think Ujiri would take that. I mean, it's not like he's gonna
it's
accept
better
that
than
deal on
nothing though.
accident.
It's better than nothing though, because if Kyle Lowry's already signing with the Lakers and it's like he doesn't want to come back to you, and he's your best player in your franchise history, like just you owe him something.
I don't know about best player in franchise history, but he definitely accomplished the most. So you have to give him that send off. But hey, I mean, that could definitely happen. I would be looking more for that Westbrook trade. I mean, the value doesn't really match up,
But the
and
thing is, like,
it
I
doesn't
don't
make
think
sense, I guess.
Westbrook.
But
I think he'd be a terrible
listen,
fit in LA
that's
because
what I mean. I kind of agree with that, but it's getting so much traction, you know.
that's true.
And you
But
can get creative with
I,
how you use Westbrook. He's a
but
rebounding point
it's
guard,
late game,
so
late game. Westbrook is not going to have the ball in his hands. I think everyone knows that it's going to be in Braun's hands,
that's
and
fine.
you have to be a shooter. Kyle Lowry can shoot the ball very well. He was shooting about 40% last year. Chris Paul obviously can shoot the ball as well. Westbrook was shooting 32%, and his career average on 31%. Like, that's just not going to cut it. That's just really just not going to cut it. So I don't think he'll be a good fit. But if they trade for him, it is what it is. But I don't think that'd be good as fit. You know, Kyle Lowry would be like my perfect signing for the Lakers this offseason.
I guess. I mean, but you would love, especially Russ fans and people I've had to deal with on the internet. I mean, it's sometimes good, sometimes bad. But
Hmm.
I mean, they would love to see Russ go home. A lot of the this is weird. Three players already going home to LA. We've been talking about, but hey,
Yeah, I mean that's why teams in LA are worth so much
Russell
more than
Westbrook
teams
going
in
home to the
Milwaukee.
Lakers. Hopefully, get that phantom
Yeah,
ring. Man, they go
yeah.
ballistic. They've
No,
been
but
waiting
I
for this
think
for
that's why like teams in LA and like New York and even like Miami to an extent are worth so much more than Milwaukee and like Cleveland and stuff. Because you get free agents, like you really get them. And you get them even when they're terrible. Like I remember when the Lakers were terrible and they still had Kobe on the team. Um, like they were still always in the race for free agents. Even though they were terrible and they were like lottery teams. People always want to be like, oh man, I can fix the Lakers. I want to be the face in Madison Square Garden. But if if the Cavs right now, like they're a terrible team. No one in free agency is like, oh, I want to fix the Cavs. Only Braun's the only free agent. That's Braun's the only free agent who's ever wanted to go to Cleveland. That's because he's from there. No one
hmm
wants to go to Cleveland. But if Miami hasn't really been that bad recently because they've had a couple bad years when Braun left immediately, but they were like terrible. They weren't like first overall pick bad. But the Knicks,
hmm
they've been terrible for the last 2 decades, and they're still always linked to free agents. And now they're actually getting their shit together, and
yeah,
they're definitely gonna get a couple like a superstar in free agency or something like that pretty soon.
I won't be surprised
Yeah. But then moving on,
to the
we
draft.
got the NBA draft, which we're recording this on Tuesday, the 27th of July. This will be out before the draft on Thursday. And
Are very
we're only
likely to be out,
yeah, probably will be like 99, not 99, but 95% chances out. But for the NBA
unless I
draft,
slack
we're
and
mainly
put it
gonna
down on
talk,
YouTube.
yeah, we're mainly gonna talk about the first four picks because that's kind of what this draft is about. Um, with number one right now, we have the Detroit Pistons, and number two, we have the Houston Rockets. Number three, Cleveland Cavaliers, and then number four, Toronto Raptors. All of these teams are in complete rebuilds except the Raptors. Cleveland's been in rebuild ever since Braun left. Houston, the Harden trade kind of reset their timeline, and Detroit has been, a dumpster fire the last couple of years. But with the first pick, the Detroit Pistons, they're going to take Cade Cunningham if they have the pick, because there's been a lot of rumors that they're going to
Yeah,
trade the pick. Like,
I
well,
mean,
last year when Minnesota had the pick, there was essentially no rumors at all. But this year, like, you can get into the trades that they've been getting, but it seems like they're, I don't know about shopping the pick, but they're definitely listening to offers.
mhm. I know the Rockets are one team
Hmm.
trying to jump from 2 to 1, right?
Yeah,
And
they've been quote unquote, apparently. I have an article pulled up here. Brian Windhorst said they're desperate to move on to number one because they really have fallen in love with Cade Cunningham.
mhm.
And then
and
also there's
I
been
mean, I
this,
can't blame them.
yeah, I mean, seems to be generational talent. And then also there's been some rumored trade from the Thunder, SGA, and the sixth pick in the draft for Cade Cunningham. So they're getting
I
good
mean, they're
offers.
definitely a team that could pull it off if they really want to for
Yeah,
Cade. Keep
I
him in
think.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think that might be the thing. The Pistons might be doing because I was listening to someone. I'm not sure who, but listening to someone on YouTube, and they were talking about how the Pistons, they're listening offers. They might be a smoke screen but they might still listen to offers because like obviously no, you're not going to trade the first pick in the draft for like the sixth pick in like next year's first. You're not going to do that, right? But if a team like the Thunder or the Rockets seems to have like another team's like pick, they have a lot of picks. Not really the Cavs because the Cavs they only have their own, but the Rockets have the Nets picks, which we could say how valuable they are. They still have a bunch of future first, right, including theirs. And same with the Thunder, they have like almost half the team in the league's picks, right? If one of them really, really, really wants Cade Cunningham, they can throw their second pick or sixth pick, right? And like the mother load, which is like 5 future firsts. And I think that's what Detroit's waiting on for because like it's not like a situation like, oh, I have to take Cade Cunningham. Like that's not a lose situation, Like you would love to have him on your team. But I think they're looking for that motherload deal where they get like a top 5, top 6 pick and like another 4 or 5 firsts. But I don't think they'll get that, and I think they will take Cade Cunningham #1 overall.
Yeah, and like it's weird because you see like these rumors, circulating,
Mm-hmm.
and but looking at the draft, you have some reports that like the Pistons are like unsure about Cade. I
Yeah,
mean, that could be smoke screen. I mean,
yeah,
they say they're definitely taking Cade. Like
yeah. It's not. They might be saying that, but everyone knows like Cade's going first overall. Like
yeah,
it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Then moving on to the second pick in the draft, I think this is where like the quote unquote real draft begins because this
yeah.
is where the first like because everyone knows Cade's going first no matter who has the pick, right?
Hmm.
But #2, the Rockets, if they stay there, uh, there seems to be like a little debate here who you take. Do you take the scoring shooting guard Jalen Green, or do you take the center who can shoot the ball and play like on defense, what people have been saying, like Anthony Davis, which is defensive player of the year level, Evan Mobley. And um seems to be that the Rockets had they have Jalen Green as their front runner for that pick.
I mean, so far it seems like that way.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've said in the past that I would rather go with Mobley because if you're a team struggling like the Rockets,
Mm-hmm.
what you really need is to build a strength. You have to start with strengths, and once you build that formidable strength, you could like branch out to the rest of your team.
Mm-hmm.
If you can like put Mobley at the 5, move Wood to the 4, you would
Which he
have
is capable of doing. That's not like a out of position thing. Wood
yeah,
has played minutes at the 4.
yeah, like that is a star uh, front court.
Yeah, I agree
But
with you. I agree with you.
you have to get a solid. Eventually, you have to get a solid, small forward.
Yeah, you get to build out
Like
your
John
roster and
Wall.
stuff.
Yeah, you have John Wall, who's not the guy for the future, but you have um. Hold on, just escaping my mind real quick. He went from the Cavs right for a second pick to the Rockets. Why is he not on my mind? He was doing pretty good on the Rockets at the end of the year.
Ooh. Oh, Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, you said what?
Porter Jr. Kevin
Yeah,
Porter Jr.
yeah. Kevin Porter Jr. Like he's a guard, right?
Yeah, he's a 2. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So you already have a guard, and he could develop. He has like pretty freaky close moves, handles, like Harden. A little with the step back. He has
Mm-hmm.
great.
And
I
he can
mean,
definitely be your scorer. I mean, they're saying Jalen Green's your scorer, but I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. had his 50-point game, but I think mainly for me, like if you're a team like the Raptors, right? Like you're last year was kind of a fluke year. You're not going to really be that bad again. But if you're the Rockets, like I don't know if I have to break it to you, but like you're terrible, right? You're gonna be here in the lottery. You're gonna be in the top 5 for the next at least 2 years, right?
mhm.
So you're gonna be drafting this like sort of range, like 1 through 5, 6-ish, for a while. So it's like just take the best player available because I think everyone here agrees, like all the analysts and stuff, that Evan Mobley is the best player available after Cade Cunningham. So just take the best player. Like there's been like the conversation for the years.
Yeah.
Do you take the best fit or do you take the best player? And I think in this
Just
situation you
add
take the best player.
that's the best player, best fit. Like you have a lot of needs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't hurt you just getting the best player.
Yeah, I say you take him, you take Evan Mobley, and you move Wood to the four, and you're fine.
Yeah, and then you have John Wall for now, my PG for a long time, and but you have him there for now, and he's obviously not your future. You're gonna have to move some, find replace it some way, maybe in the free agency next off season for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's gonna be there for another year past this year. You have Kevin. Look, think about it. You have Kevin Porter Jr. at the two. You have Wood at the four, and then you have Mobley at the five. If you're really trying to
And
build
at
your
the three, you have Jay Sean Tate, the guy who kind of burst onto the scene last year,
yeah,
an all rookie first team.
his rookie year, he kind of like jumped up there,
Mm-hmm.
and like he was in that rookie of the year ladder, if you remember,
Yeah.
and he's always been like that three spot. I think he finished third.
No, I think it was Tyrese Halliburton actually finished third.
He got third. I
Yeah,
know
I
he
think
finished
he think finished third.
one.
But Deshaun Tate was, he was a top five rookie. He
Yeah.
can definitely do some stuff for you at the three. And then next year, you're
Like
gonna be around the same range. You take
like
a guard then.
Jay Sean Tate is a player, a great player coming off your bench. Like this Rockets team, I mean, you had terrible stretches, losing streaks this
Lost
year,
like 20 games in a row, I'm pretty sure, at
like
one point.
abysmal losing streaks. And if you just do it, what we were just talking about, you have keep Jay Sean Tate, come off the bench. He could
Mm-hmm.
be your sixth man.
Yep.
And next year's off season, you'll probably have the money, and you'll they're probably still paying for Harden and Westbrook a little bit. They probably are paying.
No, they're not paying him.
They're not paying anymore.
No.
Their contract is off the books completely.
Yeah. It's off the books.
Oh, then you're fine. In that case, then you have the money, so you can like
Well, I mean, the thing is, like,
you're not
if
you're not
the main reason you take Jalen Green at two, right, is
yeah
because he's the best scorer in the draft. Which I mean, he's a great scorer. Don't get me wrong, but you have players like Ken Porter Jr., who's already your scorer at the two position. Just take Evan Mobley, a guy who has the best upside here, and if he can be Anthony Davis for you, because that's like his player comp,
mhm,
that's insane. That's insane.
yeah
Because Anthony Davis, like he's not a four. He can play the five and the four. He can play both.
mhm,
And Wood can play the four. And just take the best player here. You're gonna be terrible for the next 2 years. You can draft someone else then. You can sign someone in free agency to be your two or one or whatever. But I take the best player available here. You take Evan Mobley, but it seems that they're gonna take Jalen Green instead.
yeah. I mean, I guess their path is getting those solid role players that you need to get a championship.
Yeah.
They're far away from that now, but that's the plan. And then you get Mobley. Like that is not a bad starting five. Like for next year,
Yeah.
Wall, Porter Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
Tate, um, and then it would be
Wood and Mobley.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
with Mobley.
And then yeah.
That's not bad. Like we're clowning them right now, but
Mm-hmm.
that really would be a bad starting
Yeah.
five. We have to worry about that bench, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel like that just wraps up.
Yeah, the wraps up the Rockets and what they're going to do and what we think they should do. The third pick, like I said earlier, goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who right now are slated by most analysts because they have the Rockets taking Jalen Green, have them taking Evan Mobley, which, in my opinion, I think they kind of have to take Evan Mobley here because there's not really like a third pick. Like, there's not really a small forward. There's mainly just a bunch of guards, Cade, Green, and Suggs, and then Mobley, who are like the top echelon of talent in this draft.
Yeah.
And like obviously, like there's like people like Kaminga and stuff who could technically play your three, and like like Jalen Johnson. Oh, not Jalen. I'm sorry, like Scotty Barnes and like Kaminga. Like I said earlier, like there's a bunch of dudes but they're later on. They're like in the 7-10 range, right? You have the third pick.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you want to trade back, which seems like they don't want to, I think you have to take Evan Mobley here, but the fit here is much more questionable than it would be in Houston because Jared Allen is kind of only a five. He cannot really play the four. And I doubt that they want to just let him walk after like half a season together because, they gave up that first round pick for him in the James Harden trade.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a restricted free agent, so they'll definitely probably bring him back. But they're kind of, if I were Cleveland here, in my opinion, I would I would trade back because your guard position is already very weird with Sexton and Garland,
Mm-hmm.
and then you already have Jared Allen, and
You
the
have
fifth. What was that?
Sexton rumors, like to
Yeah,
make a
he's
trade.
been rumored around too. Because I think if the Rockets take Mobley, they'll take Green, and that means they have to move Sexton because they really like Garland. But like Mobley at the four, like this guy's your top three pick. You gotta pay him. You gotta play him at his natural position. You know,
Mhm.
he's a five. He can play the four maybe, but it's a very questionable fit at that point. But I think if I were them, I would trade down and get some of another future asset or two, and then also then you can take people like Scotty Barnes and Kaminga who better fit your roster,
Yeah, I
because
mean the
mhm,
wing position, like the forwards, like a small forward,
yeah,
power forward. Those are like positions that the Cavs could like shore up on.
yeah, but
Here,
they don't need
because
a center. Like they already have Jared Allen, and it's not
yeah,
like the Rockets where
very solid center.
yeah, it's not like the Rockets where their center is Christian Wood who can play the four position, because he can shoot. Allen cannot shoot the ball.
Yeah, he
Mobley
could pitch out a wide
can a
open.
little bit, but Mobley has to, in my opinion, have to be the five.
Yeah, I
Maybe the
mean,
four.
getting Kaminga or Scotty Barnes, those are like if I'm trading down, I probably want them, but they're
Mhm.
probably gonna be in the 5-6 range.
Yeah,
If I were them, I'd try to. Uh, I mean, Sexton seems like he's gonna go. I mean,
yeah, because I don't think the Cavs want to pay him. But if I were
he's
them, I would trade
hard.
back, gather some more assets, and draft someone like Kaminga or
I
Scotty
mean,
Barnes.
if that's the way you're going, you're going to try to let's. I mean, look, it's this Thursday is the draft. This
Hmm.
highly unlikely you're gonna move. You know,
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it seems like they're taking Evan Mobley. That'd be kind of a questionable fit with Allen, but definitely like probably the second best player in the draft behind Cade Cunningham.
yeah, other than like Jalen Green
Hmm.
for shooting guard position, because that's what they're gonna have to fill up. They've been
Hmm.
running points this whole time.
Yeah.
You're going. You have Josh Giddey from Australia, not France, right? Keon Johnson, and then you have James Bouknight. So those are
Hmm.
like three like second tier, uh, you know, prospects that you would select from
Yeah.
that. But if I were them, as you said, I would trade back, get a solid forward, and then just move on.
Yeah. Um. Then moving on to the fourth pick in the draft, which is like it seems like we're only gonna do four because it seems like the top four prospects are kind of in a class of their own compared to everyone else. So the fourth pick is the Toronto Raptors, who are in a completely different situation. Like I said earlier, they're not in rebuild mode. They're in they're a solid team. And they're kind of between two guys, and everyone kind of expects them to take Jalen Suggs, because it seems like Kyle Lowry is kind of as good as gone at this point.
Yeah,
Um, so their point guard would be Jalen Suggs, who I think would be a perfect fit on this team. But apparently, they've also been considering Scotty Barnes, which would make them a very good like defensive team.
hmm
But I think you kind of
they
have to take
already
Jalen
are.
Suggs here.
I mean, they're already solid
Yeah,
defensively.
they already are solid
But
defensive, but
I would really love them to grab, a very raw prospect who really needs development to get the
yeah, they do
position.
have they have one of the best development system in the league.
Yeah,
Talked about that
like
before, but I think Jalen Suggs, like I really love Jalen Suggs as a prospect because he's ready to go right now, right? He doesn't have to have like 2 years of development, even though he can definitely do that, but he'll
he could.
yeah. And then also he's a winner. Like he's a winner. He played for Gonzaga, almost had the undefeated season. He's going to a team that's going to be ready to compete in the playoffs. He's not going to be shying away from the moment. He's been in those high pressure situations. He's played in national championships. He's been in Final Fours, right?
Hmm.
And this whole like it's not gonna be a weird fit between him and Lowry or not Lowry, sorry, Van Vliet, because Van Vliet has been in backcourt buddy with Lowry. They've both been kind of undersized. And Suggs, he's like he's a 6'4" guard, not exactly
Yeah,
small, but in NBA terms, the backcourt with him and Van Vliet would be small. But
yeah,
the Raptors have been, they've been doing that for years, and I don't think they have an issue with it. But Suggs right here, in my opinion, is a clear cut number 4 pick, and I would love to have him on my team.
yeah. Same. I mean, it would be nice to. I mean, you don't have to choose a raw prospect, but
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, he as you said, Lowry's on the move. You just want to replace him as soon as possible, and I mean that team.
Hmm.
I feel like what would you think would be some major like needs other than point guard on that team?
I mean, like they're apparently taking Kaminga, but like they already have OG Anunoby there, you know.
Yeah, he has
So
OG.
I think
Yeah,
point guard or
no,
like shooting guard,
now.
because whatever you consider Van Vliet, would be their main hole. But like, I mean, you take Suggs, you plug him in, you play him. He's very good. You know, he's a winner. He can score for you. He can play make for you. I mean, he'd be a great fit to me in on that team, in my opinion.
And I agree. And I feel like that wraps up our NBA segment for this
Yeah,
episode.
that wraps up the draft and the NBA segment, and we'll be moving on to the NFL.